Maybe. Almost. It's trying its best. Let's see if this will play even. Oh, nope. All right. All right, got my video to play. Nice. All right, so my name's Addy Valdez, and I am the Conservation and Education Programs Manager for Utah Lake Authority. That is a lot, but it just basically means that I do a lot of different things, and I wear a lot of different hats. Essentially, though, it's easy just to remember I do all the science for us, and I do a lot of the education work. So easy enough as is. But I do have the privilege of managing our invasive vegetation removal program that has been established through so many partners over the past decade. And so that's why we're going to go through a decade-long story that is still being written. So I'm going to be a little corny and go storytelling mode on you guys, but I feel like that's a lot of what Utah Lake is. It's a long story that we've all been a part of and are still helping to write. So once upon a time, you guys have heard a lot of the history of Utah Lake already. We're all pretty familiar with it, but Utah Lake was in a different state of being. We've heard about it now. It was better, more stable kingdom, if you will. It was clearer, we had more native species, we had wetland communities that were well established, and we had natural fluctuations in water. We weren't being managed like a reservoir. And then settlement brought really big changes. We brought grazing in, livestock, agriculture, people, and most importantly that I'm going to focus on today, invasive species. So we've heard a lot about carp, but I'm going to stay on the more easier to manage side in plants. Plants don't move around and aren't trying to be forests that are invisible that move. So thankfully I have the advantage of being able to take care of those guys instead. So here came the bad guys, our invasive species. We've heard lots about this today. So Phragmites is what I'm going to be focusing on. So Phragmites, or common reed, also known as Phragmites australis, has invaded our kingdom. It was a big deal. It was covering almost 10,000 acres in 2012, which if you've been on Utah Lake, which many of you had, it's big and it's got a lot of shoreline that fluctuates. So there's a lot of room for Phragmites to invade because it's so shallow. So many of you are long-term residents and have seen what Utah Lake used to look like over a decade ago, and it was just all Phragmites. It was kind of insane, just one monoculture. We've also had a large invasion of Russian olive and tamarisk, and they have also joined the bad guy crew. So we have lots of other invasive annuals that we get as well, such as thistle, but we're not focusing as much on those because they don't guzzle as much water. They're not having as many of these detrimental effects on our communities, our ecosystems, or recreation. So we're going to focus mainly on those three. But I think it's important to address why is Phragmites even our main antagonist. You keep hearing so much about it, like why is it so awful, blah, blah, blah. But it is a bad guy. It really does a lot of damage to our ecosystems. So it vastly changes our hydrology. So it is able to guzzle up a lot of water, and it makes sure that water stays stagnant. So that's really big for mosquito breeding. So we get a lot of mosquitoes that like to breed in Phragmites stands. And it also changes sediment transport because it keeps all of the ground stable. So that sediment that would naturally move isn't able to go anywhere, so it accrues even faster. So Utah Lake's a muddy place, and it just gets even muddier in this state, essentially. It also converts native wetland habitats into these monocultured lands, so aka just one plant. It's all Phragmites, and that's all you can see, as far as the eye can see, if you will. With a high risk of fire when it dries out, it's very flammable and can be very dangerous. Thankfully, we haven't had many issues with that because we're on a lake, so that's nice. But you never know in our drought years. And then we also have a major loss of bird habitats, especially with our migratory birds that we get in Utah and that we're so famous for. Phragmites and only offering that one plant again is not great habitat for migratory birds. And it also significantly impedes recreation and access to the lake itself. So we've had so many people get lost, duck hunters, anything else, get lost in stands of Phragmites that we have to call search and rescue and go get them because they get lost. It's kind of insane. It grows up to 15 feet tall. It's impenetrable, and it is a big problem. And I think this diagram on the left really shows kind of this new state that we're shooting for and that we're in. So you can kind of see up here with the crown, oh, here's us, our once very valiant kingdom that was clear and awesome and so amazing. And then we had all these really big changes happen. So settlement, carp, water quality changes, and then this is where we were in the past few decades. You know, we're at the bottom here. Our water quality is not as good. We're in this turbid, hypereutrophic state. And this is where we are now. We're getting there. We're making a lot of progress, and we're building towards, hopefully, like we've mentioned previously in other presentations, a new stable state, somewhere that's going to be resilient, it's going to take care of itself, and we're not going to have to hopefully do as much heavy lifting. But we're a long ways from there, and we're still working to get this ball back into a place that's stable and easier for us to manage as well. But like Mayor Kafusi and many of our other managers have said, that it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to be shooting for the moon in order to get there. So in order to take care of our Phragmites problem, a very, very awesome discovery we made was our literal knights in shining armor, aka our marsh masters. So they're basically this large aquatic tank. They're made of aluminum and other like really lightweight metal. So they look like a tank that, you could shoot a missile out of, but they float completely on water, which is kind of scary when you're in one. I would not suggest being in open water on one. So marsh masters are a noble steed. They get out there on the ground in Utah Lake that is a very notoriously difficult place to navigate. If you've ever been out there, you get stuck, you get muddy, and it's squishy, and it's really interesting to get around in. So the marsh masters made our life a lot easier and made our access much more variable across Utah Lake. We've also been utilizing research-based or research-backed practices that have been developed with this amazing effort over the last couple decades in order to properly treat Phragmites. And I think it's important to note that our magic bag of tools, aka our integrated pest management, has a lot of different ways that we treat Phragmites. We're not just using herbicide, we're investigating cattle grazing and inundation. There's a lot of techniques that you can do for integrated pest management and getting rid of these really, really aggressive weeds because it takes more than one to get rid of it. But there's a lot of research and a lot of people who are invested in that because no one treatment is going to fix our problem. So I think we've done a great job about making sure that we keep these tools and the way we treat Phragmites diverse. And so with all this effort that we've put in the last decade, thanks to all of our partners that I'll mention at the end, we've had estimated about an 80% reduction in our coverage. So again, we started at about 10,000 acres, which is a lot. And we're now, I think with our rough estimations, we were about 1,500 acres as of this year in our treatment, which is a major reduction. And a lot of those are very spotty. They're small. They're not these giant stands that you're hopefully not going to have to call search and rescue. If you do, I'd be a little concerned. So what about after we have defeated the villain? What do we do when Phragmites is finally gone? That's the problem we're running into now and why our story is still being written. So we have our return of our humble townsfolk, aka our native plants. So this is where we're turning our heads to now, going to active and passive restoration. So active just means that we are literally going out there, digging holes, putting plants in the ground. And passive is more that we're taking a hands-off approach. So some of these plants are coming back on their own, and we don't have to really get involved as much. So we're seeing both of these happen, and both can work really well. But Utah Lake, again, is a really big place. And so not every type of restoration works in every site. So some of the techniques that we've been using is seed plugs, aka just like these little baby plant carrots, sod mats, and then we've just seen a lot of great natural passive return of vegetation communities. But all of these have trade-offs with how much they cost, how much effort it takes, and there's some great documents through the Utah State University Extension Office that explore this and some more research that's being done. And so far, through Utah Lake Authority and with our partners, we've installed almost 86,500 plants installed since the fall of 2023, which might not seem a lot, but a tray of about 98 is about this many plugs. So it's quite a bit of acreage, so we're happy about that, and we've seen pretty decent survival of most of the areas that we've installed. The biggest install we just did was actually this year. We did 40,000 this summer and about 21,000 just in the last couple weeks. So we're really happy with the methodology that we're getting going with that, and we've had so much help to even make it happen. So thankfully, we have the help of Utah Conservation Corps crews. These guys are great. They get into the weeds literally, and are doing this work and are very efficient and very great. We also have a lot of volunteer events that we do. We want to engage our community to make sure that they're involved in creating a sense of place for themselves on Utah Lake. We've talked about the reputation of Utah Lake and making sure people are involved on Lake. And this is a great way that people have found that they are making a difference and they have a stake in Utah Lake. And managers, all of our partners have made this possible with all the planning, the research, the logistics. It takes a village. Literally. So I am very thankful for everything that everyone has done to make this even possible. So these are just some great progress pictures, I think, of what this can look like when it's successful. So up here on the left, there's like an awesome sod mat that established up in American Fork in the Timpanogos Special Service District, nice and healthy. These are some meadow communities that have established. Up on the far right is what it kind of looks like after we do an install, maybe a couple months afterwards. So a little sparse, but it's coming in. Where you start to see these really amazing pollinator species come back. This is my intern, Marley, from the summer. She was my humble squire. She was amazing and did a lot of the work that I didn't want to do. And so she made this really possible as well. So we love to be able to see these communities of vegetation come back that are desirable, that are native, provide that great bird habitat and safe recreation. And there's just so much effort that goes into it. But that does not mean there is not challenges, because rebuilding a kingdom is no easy feat. It takes a lot of people and a lot of villagers. It takes planning. This means years in advance, making sure that you're able to acquire all of the supplies you need, all of the logistics, making sure you're using all your funding on time. Because it does take time. Restoration and building planned communities and fixing a lake does not happen overnight. As we've heard, it takes a long time. So that's why we're shooting for the moon. And it takes commitment and it takes a team. So a lot of people, you need to be invested in it, and the idea that you could actually make Utah Lake a better place, especially with our vegetation communities when it gets very tiring. And the team part is almost the biggest part of making it even a success story. There's so much coordination that goes on. Like myself and a couple of the managers were in the Utah State Prison a few weeks ago picking up pollinator species, and it takes a lot of people and effort to make this happen. But this kingdom that we live in and manage and exist with changes fast and changes very vastly. So we've seen some of that change already. Our water levels fluctuate immensely and very quickly over time. So that means you have to be very quick as a manager. You have to make decisions on the spot because, hey, there's 2 feet of water that is now gone from Utah Lake and hundreds of acres of open land. How do you prevent that from getting invaded from Phragmites again? And that's what we're working on. There's also habitat availability when things become grown in or landscape changes with people, how they manage their property. We work with over 400 individual landowners across the lake, and that takes an effort as well. It's impressive how many people want to see their land be improved with these programs. And then we also see a lot of feedback loops. A lot of the things on Utah Lake are interconnected, that if you change one thing, it's going to disrupt another. So there's sadly no silver bullet, no simple solution to making any of our problems with Utah Lake go away. And we all know that very well here as we've done this over the years. And so I think just hitting on that point that it takes so much effort, commitment, time, and teamwork to make this happen, it really makes a difference, though. So these are some of the challenges that have come with it. You get cows that are out illegally. We've had this issue a lot lately, and they're grazing your plants that you just installed a week ago. You also get stuck in the mud a lot, very scarily. You're working in harsh conditions that are cold, it's hot, more stuck in the mud as well, feet stuck in the mud, working with drones and technology that is notoriously a pain. And then doing things like renting 8 million U-Hauls for the summer. That was me. And so you try to get as many U-Hauls as you can to get as many plants moved, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. And it makes a big difference. So what is the future of Utah Lake and how it reigns over Utah County? I think we've seen a lot of great inspiration for what Utah Lake has gone through, but also where it's going. So I think there's this very great vision for a connected watershed because we've finally gotten rid of our evildoer, and now we're trying to work through spreading that message and spreading that vision to get rid of Phragmites and other invasive species in our tributaries, in our neighboring areas, in our cities, and working together for coordinated plans and actions with other watersheds as well, Great Salt Lake, Jordan River, Bear Lake, everything that you can think of, we're trying. And money is here, or it's on its way. We have a lot of federal funding that is hopefully being allocated if they pass a budget. We'll see. We have currently $1.5 million that we're working through that has been phenomenal in making progress in this effort. WRI is one of our biggest funders consistently over the past decade and has really started this program and made it possible. Forestry Fire and State Lands is also an annual contributor to this effort, and we couldn't do it without their partnership. And one of our biggest assets we're making is going to be with the Great Salt Lake Water Delivery Program in order to spread this vision and continue telling this story story in upper watersheds, in our neighbors, and make sure that we can really get rid of our evildoer in the entire kingdom of Utah County, essentially. So, huzzah! I love Utah Lake and love working with all the partners that we have here. USU, the Utah Pollinator Habitat Program, UVU, the Division of Forestry, Fire, State Lands, the Watershed Restoration Initiative of Utah, and Utah County. They're all our on-the-ground guys. So there's so many people that make this happen, and there's countless more that are involved as well. I can't mention them all. But thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to pass the baton now to Emily Santos.